So this New York Times article, let me bring this up. The title of this article is Trump had more than 300 classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. The subtitle says the National Archives found more than 150 sensitive documents when it got a first batch of material from the former president in January, hoping to explain the Justice Department's urgent response. So even in the subtitle, what does it tell us? That Trump was cooperating with these requests from the National Archives. It's funny that the FBI would stage a raid on someone who was cooperating the way that Trump was. But remember, the role the New York Times played in Russiagate was as the mouthpiece of the federal government. And by the federal government, I mean the swamp creatures in the deep state, in the intelligence community, and the law enforcement apparatus in the federal government. And they are playing the same role in this as it unfolds in the FBI's abuse of power by raiding Mar-a-Lago. This is what they write. The initial batch of documents retrieved by the National Archives from former President Donald J. Trump in January included more than 150 marked as classified, a number that ignited intense concern at the Justice Department and helped trigger the criminal investigation that led FBI agents to swoop into Mar-a-Lago this month seeking to recover more. Multiple people briefed on the matter said. Okay, so first of all, it's funny because they won't use the word raid. Remember how they told us this was just a visit from the FBI? But they swooped in. Well, what do you do? If you're swooping in, what are you doing? Well, you're raiding. You're not visiting. You don't swoop in for a visit. Just funny, I think. In total, the New York Times writes, the government has recovered more than 300 documents with classified markings from Mr. Trump since he left office. The first batch of documents returned in January, another set provided by Mr. Trump's aides to the Department of Justice in June, and the material seized by the FBI in the search this month. Okay, so that's 2 batches of documents that Trump turned over voluntarily at the request of the National Archives. And what does the DOJ do in response? They staged this raid. The previously unreported volume of sensitive material found in the former president's possession in January helps explain why the Justice Department moved so urgently to hunt down any further classified materials he might have. And here's where the total BS comes into play. The total BS. The previously unreported volume of the sensitive material. Remember that phrase because, they bury this about 10 paragraphs down. But I'm going to tell you what they say before they say it so you can fully appreciate this. They go on to say that the level of classification of these documents is actually completely irrelevant to what the Department of Justice is trying to charge Trump with. But this is what the New York Times does. This is what they did. First, they tell us that it was nuclear weapons-related documents. Oh my, nukes! President Trump, can't you just picture him in his bedroom? He creeps out of bed in the middle of the night, gets out his little Lego toys and tries to build a replica model of a nuclear weapon based on the documents that he secreted away from the White House. Yeah, that was likely. Okay, so remember that phrase. The previously unreported volume of sensitive material found in the former president's possession helps explain why the Justice Department moved so urgently. Okay, right. And the extent to which, the New York Times writes, such a large number of highly sensitive documents remained at Mar-a-Lago for months, even as the department sought the return of all material that should have been left in government custody when Mr. Trump left office, suggested to officials that the former president or his aides had been cavalier in handling it, not fully forthcoming with investigators or both. Okay, so again, what the New York Times is doing in this article is they are presenting things in a way that makes it appear that President Trump did something bad. Big bad orange man did bad thing with bad documents. No, President Trump had a standing order that any documents he took from the White House to Mar-a-Lago were declassified. He's the ultimate arbiter of classification. He can declassify anything he wants. This is the claim President Trump, the defense President Trump has made, and it's a completely valid defense. If someone in the government wants to litigate that, they want to challenge the right of the chief executive to be the ultimate arbiter of classification, that's fine, go ahead. But the New York Times doesn't get to be the arbiter of whether the president's the ultimate arbiter of classification. They need to present the whole story, and since they're not, you can tell they're lying to us. They go on to say the specific nature of the sensitive material that Mr. Trump took from the White House remains unclear. But the 15 boxes Mr. Trump turned over to the archives in January, nearly a year after he left office, included documents from the CIA, the National Security Agency, and the FBI, spanning a variety of topics of national security interest. Okay, remember what they originally told us these documents were? They said it was letters that Kim Jong-un had written to President Trump, which President Trump has already talked to the American people about publicly. So by nature of that conversation, President Trump declassified the material. And we were also told that there was a letter that former President Barack Obama left at the White House for President Trump when he was the incoming president. So the nature remains unclear. First it was Kim Jong-un and Obama letters, then it was nuclear documents, and now we just don't know, according to the New York Times.